keep, for,
Hey, sorry,
uh,
stop recording.
I, for some reason, get talked into doing things that my heart is not into, like, you know, getting sold by there we go, by, you know, salespeople. That everybody needs so much help right now, that, and in a nutshell, I have been treading water for so long as far as what I want to do. And I still don't know what I want to do. But this little baby step in terms of, so I work for sales for a regional magazine, which started out being fabulous because it was all about networking in the different towns. And it's like Sun Valley wants to know what's going on in Jackson, and Park City wants to know what's going on in Bend and all that. And so that made sense. But now I have this other guy that has a building magazine, like, you know, building architecture. And we've been friends for a while. He was affiliated with the other one as well. But he's been bugging me for 5 years to join his team. And I've been doing this, you know, just like yes and no and yes and no. And there's some red flags that are really freaking me out, because I don't think ultimately realizes how much I value my autonomy in the community, and that I need to work for me. And sure, if I'm working as more of like a PR person for him, that's fine. But I can't be Patrice Kangas working under his brand, because anyway, that's where I'm at right now.
Sounds like, because then you don't have your own voice, right? Your own authenticity. You can't show up the way you need to.
Exactly. And our styles are so different. He is the guy just acts like he's on, like, has a triple shot of espresso and then goes in. He is just on it. And that's not, I'm more like, you know, here's this, here's that. I feel like this makes more sense to you guys for advertising, you know, just weigh your options. I'm just kind of, but part of that is being in a small ski town for a long time and having connections. And some of those connections are the direct competition. And I'm going to be sitting on a basketball sideline bench with two of my friends who have another publication that's direct competitor. And I'm like, I don't know that, you know, there's so much that, anyway, that's getting into the issue with you guys. I just kind of ultimately need to listen to my own voice, right?
Exactly. And it's so easier said than done, which is why we have this topic today, and people seem to resonate with people. Hi, Coach Constance.
What's that?
Hi there.
Someone else joined. Coach Constance is there.
Hi.
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 I'm feeling conflicted because I didn't finish my lunch, but I don't want to eat on camera.
Well, you can turn off your camera and eat if you want.
Does that work? I don't want to be rude.
That does. Absolutely. Please eat your lunch.
Okay. I didn't mean to interrupt the flow either.
No, that's perfectly fine.
Getting started.
Oh yeah, I was just taking advantage of while I had these two to myself. I was like, all right, in a nutshell.
Yeah, this is all perfect. You know, Patrice, you said something that was very intriguing to me. You said that these were your competitors. So it makes me wonder what your values are around competition and collaboration and things like that. If you have values related to that, and if there's a possibility of seeing them in a different light.
Yes.
That would make things feel more like, yes, I could sit across from them. I could sit next to the people who are also doing something very similar, but we have slightly different niches, or there's something different about what we're doing that doesn't make it as threatening.
Exactly. And my husband was super helpful with that too, because he's in real estate. And, you know, what's he doing this week? He has a golf tournament that he plays with a bunch of some of his oldest buddies. And he's kind of the new kid on the block, really, because he's only been doing it for like 5 years or so. And it's hard for me because I have so many preconceived notions about how people perceive what you're doing, and especially when you are changing roles within the same small little town. So yes, I can, and he was really helpful about how I can reframe it when I'm hanging out with Kevin and Shelly at a basketball game. And it doesn't need to be that competition. And I would first and foremost, oh, hi, break the ice and let them know ahead of time that, look, I'm going to do this and this is how I feel about it. And I don't think it's like a direct, you know, they would love for me to do the same thing for them is the deal, but
Right. Yeah.
anyway.
So you're, I mean, I think we'll kind of like regroup for a second and then kind of go back to what you were saying too, which is, this is a really important topic. We chose it intentionally today. So, and as a values and idea integrator, which is what I do, these are the kind of complicated questions that we ask ourselves, and using the values in our business and in our lives to help us make sure those no's and yeses are authentic to ourselves and to what matters to us. It's a real connection to that. It's a bridge.
Totally.
So what I like to do is in the workshop that we run, the Discover Your Core Values, we come up with a set of core values, which are 5 to 7 core values that really are the words that we can go, yes, these are our words. This doesn't mean we don't have more
I
values.
did that with you.
I know. And you did. So do you have your 5?
I wish. I was funny. That was another thing. I was going to go run and try to find what I mean, I can come up with them again. I'm sure I'd come up with a very similar, if not the exact same list.
Right.
But yeah, integrity, I remember, was a huge, and trust and honesty. Those are all
Right.
parts of it.
And it, and also I heard autonomy sounds like a big one too, as a value, right? And it may be on the list, it may not. That would be one thing to check and see, because it seemed really clear to you, or if it fits into another one. But when we have that list and we do the, we call them steps in that process, but really it's kind of a spiral of phases, because we review and go back a lot. It's not just a straight line to our values. It's really a bit more of, like you would see in nature, a spiral to get to the core. And because of that, once we get there, those are the things we can go and get, we spend the time reflecting instead of trying to take in the yes and no's. There's a lot about, what do other people think? What are they going to feel if I do that? What are they going to think of me? What are they going to think of my decision? What are they, it's a lot of like being on the other side of the street. Totally. And so I'm really familiar with that. I know it well. I like to say I'm a recovering people pleaser and can do it in an instant. And I've had good recovery in the sense of doing that less and less. And the biggest thing is, like, where you are right now is that big pause. Like, you didn't just say yes to the guy without thinking about it. You know yourself well enough to be like, okay, I have to find my way into this, through it. So the values, like just taking time to write on, and the reason the 5 to 7 are there, because sometimes we don't realize all the values that are at play here. And it's like an actual, you take the pause and then you can kind of go through them and see what's in alignment and what's not.
Right.
With either moving into this direction or working with him directly, or the how. It's really the how more than anything, because you seemed really clear about the how. And if the how doesn't match his how, that may be where there's a conflict.
Yes.
And that's what it sounded like.
Happening. I spoke to him again this morning. I was like, I'm not sure that I'm what you want me to excuse me, to be.
Right.
And he just right before he got on, sent an email saying, this is, you just choose this. He kept trying to like make me business cards with his logo. I'm like, no, you're not listening. I'm not listening. And so there was a little bit of a red flag though, because I was on an email chain, you can do that. And then the next thing you know, you're forwarding it on to somebody else. And I don't think I was necessarily supposed to see all of it. And he shared with this other partner of his in his magazine that I would be stepping away from my current role with the one that I'm working for right now. And I've never told him that. He said a month out, and I was like, so I called him out on it. I was like, what was that? And he's like, well, you told me that. I was like, no, I never said that. So, that's pretty big red flag for me. What other things are going to be said that are not true?
Right. And if you have integrity as your value, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how in step 5 we talk about how do we define it or describe integrity. So like for me, it's doing what you say you're going to do, walking the walk, right? And so whatever your definition of integrity is, does working with him align with that?
And interestingly enough, I've known him long enough that there's a lot, I was kind of surprised to see that, truthfully.
Okay.
And I know that he wants to make this work, and ultimately he's such a talker that I don't know if he thinks through what he's going to say ever, and if things just fly right out of his mouth. I'm never going to have control over that. So
No.
I guess my ultimate fear is that he's going to be using my relationships to further his gain, to what detriment to me.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, that's a fear. It doesn't make it real necessarily, but
right.
Yeah,
I know that's I don't know if it's fair or not, but
right.
But I don't like to see something ever that isn't truthful, and
Right.
Mhm.
Well, yes, and I have found too that we can have contracts up the wazoo, but ultimately it's who we're doing our business with. Because if someone doesn't, if you have a contract that says one thing and the other, it's really who we're doing business with and who we're collaborating with. And
right.
And that's where some of the other values can sometimes fit in too. So integrity seems really clear. Like he seems to be a man of integrity from what you've said, and yet you're seeing these other behaviors in this particular context, which is working
Right.
with them, which you haven't really done before, because sometimes people can be one way out social, as a friend or socially, and different in business.
Mm-hmm.
But going through the different values or autonomy and the other ones, really kind of tuning into yourself, what's there and what isn't there for this job in
Right.
particular. And then it becomes like, where does it land? Sometimes, and sometimes those values that we don't even realize, like my value for this year is flourish. And so for me, that's about being out there and blooming and having opportunities to try new things and to grow and learn. And so that I picked that as my value for the year. So I tend to rely on that more often this year as my go-to word to go like, okay, does this help me move closer to flourish or away from flourish? And so, and that's not one you would necessarily think of when choosing a job per se, right? But I also think about
it makes a lot of sense. That word resonates with me at the moment. I love that you chose that. And immediately, if I put that into my context, it's my blooms are not going to come out in this scenario and like get me to that next level of what it is that I don't know that I want to do, but this is not going to be the end all, that's for sure. So
right. And that's an important thing that's why the values are really helpful, because it's not that they don't change, but when you do a 5 to 7 set that you have as your core values, you can use them in multiple different scenarios as kind of your sounding board. So instead of kind of going to other people, certainly not our loved ones, and it's helpful, but this is a way for you to have a sounding board. It's like playing, tennis on like a ball,
right.
In a backdrop. So you can actually practice yourself and just reflecting back, because you're like, oh yeah, separate from this whole incident, I created these values, or not created, I identified them as being in me, as a direct connection to me. And so I can use them to help me connect to myself.
Yeah.
In any situation. Because it really, when we talk about yes and no, it is about our relationships with other people at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is all helpful. I'm gonna grab my list. I'm curious to know what ones I'm not thinking about currently. You know, usually they like the media ones that I just shared with you come like that, but I'm sure there's other ones.
Well, that's what's interesting. That's why I picked flourish, because I tend to go to sustainability, and I talk about sustainability in terms of like environment and also, but also like health and financial, but sustainability and integrity are my go-tos, you know, I'm like integrity, you know, and then I'm like, that's why I chose Flourish this year, because I really wanted to have a different experience and open up that side of me, even during a pandemic.
Yeah. No, that's great.
So, and we're going to be doing the workshop again in November. So,
Oh, good.
yeah.
November 7th and 14th, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
Yay.
I'm excited about that. I want to add one thing just about when you talked about the yes and no piece being about our relationship with others. It's also really about our relationship to self and honoring that as well, because I think that for me, you know, as we thought about this topic, and Amy and I are always looking for what's up for us, what's relevant right now, what's hot, right? This yes and no thing was really quite the topic for both of us. Saying yes to things and saying no to things. And I found that this is the season, I guess it's the fall season. This is really the season of saying yes and no to a lot of things for me. And I'm starting to see all these different shifts, and it is about my relationship to myself. It's about the values, but it's also about, because Amy and I share in common the flourish. Mine is grow and flourish, right? Because of lifelong learning, grow and flourish. But flourish is also just beyond just growing, but it's just, you know, exceeding. It's just this amazing kind of blooming and blossoming, right? That just never ends. And I've just noticed that by looking at that particular value, as well as some of my other values around presence, that has led me to make two really important decisions recently in my life around what I'm saying yes to and no to. One is around deciding to enroll in a year-long program that was like really scary, because it's, you know, it's a financial investment, it's an investment in me, but one that was really, really important for me to do at this particular point in my life. And the other was around just really saying no to a relationship that wasn't quite fitting, that wasn't feeling right, that felt like a lot of work. And you know, I don't think relationships need to be like that. I think that there's certainly a level of work, but when there's a difference in terms of the perspective that you bring, and I love differences, but there's an ideological difference that can't be bridged. That's something that's like, oh, look at that. And it's like, okay, I've got to say yes to me, because otherwise I'm not going to be true to myself.
Right.
But I did that in relationship, but the decision is really around my relationship with self and honoring those parts of myself.
Nice. And I don't, only tell me if it's relevant, but it's exciting. Do you want to share what you're doing for the year?
Well, yes, I have just been in my coaching practice. I've just kind of not really done any marketing. I haven't been a person who has really wanted to like get online and do the things that I know attract clients. So it's been like kind of word of mouth sort of thing. And it's kind of been just this kind of up and down and not very much happening, right? So I haven't really gone out of my way to be visible and to be present and to allow people to find me and to share my gifts. And I just decided that the fear that I had about stepping out and being visible was really obviously holding me back, but it wasn't contributing to my goals. It wasn't contributing to the values that I have around flourishing, around being a beneficial presence, around making a difference, around honoring life, around so many things, that it was time to, like, you know, if not now, when? Like, when are you gonna just like let go of whatever this stuff is that is, you know, all this chatter, right? That's always there, that always shows up, the gremlins, right? And just step into something that has always felt right. Because every time I shrink back or slow down, it takes a toll, it takes a hit on me feeling like my vitality. Yeah. Right. So it's around honoring that vitality. It's around honoring like what I have inside of me that's ready to just share. It's like, you know, at this stage in my life, it's like, girl, don't keep waiting. At some point, I mean, I don't believe it's ever too late, right? But so it's like, just go for it. So that was really what factored into that, me saying yes to this. It's time to say yes to me in this way and really honor myself. And so that was part of it.
Nice.
And it's the same thing. It's like, here's the thing that I've always realized, and I don't know if this is, you guys tell me if this has been your experience. Every time I make a major shift in my life, I experience certain relationships and falling away. Like for whatever reason, something happens. It may be something major, or it may just that people, I would say that people disqualify themselves, right? So it's like when you become a different person and you show up differently, for some people, they are like really super excited about it. For some people, there's like there's no longer an energetic connection, right? So it starts to like dissolve or fall apart. But these are things to me that it took me a long time to personally realize that this is just part of the process of growth, right? You've heard that, people are in your life for a reason, season, lifetime, that thing. And it's so true. It's like at times, it's like now you need to shed certain things in order to allow whatever is trying to emerge. So I'm just really looking at it that way and just seeing that show up again in my life and just knowing that, oh, this is like a sign from the universe. It's like my little piece of clarity. It's like, okay, the energy is shifting and now things are shifting and I'm okay with that. So it's really kind of just accepting and embracing that part too.
Nice.
So that's what's up for me.
That's awesome. Yeah. I wish, it's funny, I don't know why I never thought about my girlfriend Rachel here is she has a company called Growing Great Families.
Uh-huh.
She writes for the newspaper and she does she meets with families one-on-one and she does but same thing as what you're saying. She hates the marketing piece of it and you're marketing yourself, right? Is that so much harder than marketing a magazine? It's like it's easy enough to sell something that isn't you, but when you're selling yourself, you're like, I get it. It's harder.
Right. And then reframing that makes all the difference in the world too.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that's for me, speaking of marketing, flourish is when I talk about marketing, I had connected to my value of flourish.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think of it differently. So when I have a day where I do any kind of marketing, I'm like, oh, this is about flourishing and contributing and putting things out there in the world that matches my integrity. Right. So it's like, it can be framed in a different way.
Right. And the values really do help with it.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I'm just saying the values help with that so much.
Yeah,
all the
just
time.
gonna get back to the values and the idea of sales, because you brought up sales too. We have a world where sales aren't bad necessarily, but sales in integrity is really important. We've seen such destruction from a lack of integrity around selling and marketing.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes an extra effort, and certain personalities are really good salesmen too. And that's where we have to watch, like the idea of saying, I remember hearing this, I don't remember who said it, but saying no to somebody or something is saying yes to ourselves. And I think it was what you were saying, but it's such a clear, it's helpful to me to say no, because it means, oh, I'm saying yes to me. Because in certain relationships, I sometimes felt like I did have to choose between someone else and myself. And those were not healthy relationships for me.
Yeah.
So, and it's just a path too. Like there's not a right or wrong with it. It's just the values can help direct which way to go that feels kind of the most aligned.
Mm-hmm.
And what research has shown is, and I've experienced and clients have experienced, when we're in alignment, we feel better. And we do better work, we show up more.
Yeah.
And our well-being and fulfilled and satisfied, things that we feel like we belong. It's just a better place to be for ourselves. So did you find your words or your values or not yet?
No, I didn't. I've got to go run upstairs and look. I figured I didn't know if you guys were going to check in a little bit with Teresa, and I could just listen and run up there and grab stuff, or how you wanted to do
However
this.
you want to do it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Yes.
Go ahead. Terry, you want to say hi? You're muted.
unmute. Yeah.
There you
Yeah,
are.
there you are. Hi.
Oh, it's been a long time since
Yeah.
I've seen everybody. Yeah.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's just been a lot of the aftermath of my mom's passing and selling her house and distributing her stuff around to a lot of different people and clarifying my values, really, just and having to be very clear about where money got spent because I have an adversary in the family. And I feel so good about the fact that I have made sure every charge I made on my mother's account, I put on her card. So every expense is clear. So I have an adversary who thinks she has a gotcha going on, and she doesn't. It's a big relief that she. So in my values is clarity, and I think flourish is a great value to put as an overarching value for the year. That sounds like a very useful one. And you know, I have so many notebooks on so many different things that have been coming up. I had a notebook for the workshop I was in, but I think I'd like to sign up for the November workshop so I can start all over and keep the workbook in a special place. So I think another value that I'm going to have to come up with and put it in a way that's not judgmental is to put everything in its place and to put everything in order. Because throughout this, you know, all these different rushes I've had to do, I've put things in places, and only if I do about a half an hour of searching can I find exactly what I'm looking for. But I've learned that I can find things and not to give up in the first minute. So I think I'm going to have to put that along with flourish, because having things in order does help flourish, in fact.
Absolutely.
Being able to find a very important piece of paper like that. Oh yes, here. I've got it right at my fingertips. So I'm really glad I'm here, and I'm glad to see you, and just glad to be a part of this values clarification. As a matter of fact, one other thing that comes to mind was I think at some point we mentioned other women who we admire and whose values we admire. You know, their lives are so public, you can pretty much name their values. And I had said that Michelle Obama was my, you know, top of my list. And one day about 4 weeks ago, my husband walked in and he asked me, so can you name a woman you admire? And I had an immediate answer. It was a lot of fun. And so I think in a daily way, this kind of values work comes up. And I think that people are surprised that, you know, you have a fairly substantial answer from having done this work.
Yes.
Yes.
That's a win. Woo!
Yeah.
Yeah. That, I mean, that is, it's beautiful to say, because I do, the values work is happening all the time. It's just we're not talking about it. And what the purpose of all this is to have these deeper conversations and to make it more accessible, not so ethereal. You know, values are usually like on a wall in a, you know, usually like the, you know, the wall in the closet somewhere in a company, or it's on a website, or people identify it with their religious organization, rather than really get, or the family values idea where it gets co-opted politically. But rather than going, okay, what is it for myself? What does this really mean for me? And so that's beautiful. And I think the idea of order is a really interesting one, and it may be part of clarity. or it may be a separate, and clarity may be part of order.
Mhm.
And that's what I think that doing the workshop again will be great.
Yes,
And-
yes, yes.
And
Yeah.
there is I have a code for whoever, I'll send I haven't sent the email out announcing the workshop yet, but I will in the next day or so, probably tomorrow.
Okay,
So, but you can reach out to me too, because there's a special code if you've taken the workshop before, which you all have. So
great.
yeah, it would be great to have you there. And it is really important, because when you can kind of really rely on those 5 to 7, because they just come up, and it helps us in those moments of pause.
Mhm.
And it's not that we're not gonna, give a yes quickly when we really want to say no, but it gives us a little bit of cushioning there. If we can pause and then reflect on our values, then we can really participate fully.
Yeah.
So it's not like pause, reflect, participate,
Mhm. Mhm.
and
Yeah, I was just thinking, just the whole thing around just wanted to say something about the order too, because it's like, sometimes life gives us what we need in terms of showing us, like when something bumps up against our values, or we realize that we've got a value that we didn't know we had before because of a circumstance or an experience that we're having. And it sounds like for you, Terry, just, not being able to get hold of things, and just the stress that causes, the lack of comfort that you experience, and having to search for things is something that you decide that you may not want to have in your life, right? So it's like, oh, so then order, or whatever it is that you come up with, is something that's really important to me. It may not have been before, but it certainly is factoring in there now.
Yeah,
Right? So it's like, that's the beauty of this work. It's because it's always revealing, the values are always revealing themselves or showing up, because part of when I talked about the relationship piece, part of it was around having a conflict that really made it very clear to me that the two of us had a very different view about compassion. Passion is core to me. Being able to be accepting of people, and to see them, and to honor where they are, and to not impose my view, my value, my beliefs on other people, to allow other people to live as they need to live, is so central to who I am, that when their conflicts came up that was just not resolvable, in a way that made it very clear that we saw that very differently. And that would be very hard for me to be with somebody who didn't have a sense of compassion and acceptance of others. So it's those kinds of things. And it's like, because it was like this, that it's like, oh, okay, that's clear. It's important, it's important to realize that, and important to know, because this is so important to me.
right, it's that clarity.
Mm-hmm.
And helps us bridge. I think one of the things when we don't know what to say, yes or no, or we're saying yes when we want to say no, or no when we want to say yes, is that in the moment it's hard to find ourselves in that.
yeah,
And so the compassion value, the clarity value, all of those things, the autonomy value that Patrice mentioned earlier, all of those are just like when we can go there, and they're known, but we know they're part of a set.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're not just one,
Right.
we're complex, but we
Right.
have that to rely on as a foundation, and as a bridge to connect us, to the outside world and how we relate. Because it is the how, mostly. The yes and the no is what we're doing, but it's the how we're doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
How
And
we be and interact with ourselves and others.
Yeah. And the core values are really so fundamental, and they're so personal, and they're so foundational, that once you discover them, it's like, yeah, it is that beautiful compass. And it's like, it's remarkable how much it helps to know what they are for you.
Yeah.
That clarity is just central.
yeah.
And it does come up every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is. So it was a good, and it's great that you had that answer too.
Yeah. I love that. So there.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, and other times when, values don't come up directly, but you can you can move a conversation toward naming values if you can name your values. I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. It becomes less vague, or, it
Yeah.
becomes
Yeah.
clearer. And when you're talking about values, it's harder to argue in a sense way, like it's just becomes a value. It's not like something to fight.
Right. Right.
Value of passion. Oh, okay.
Not right or wrong, right? It's
I mean, I know plenty of people who would do that.
right.
They probably have other issues going on.
But that gives you information too, doesn't it?
It really does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Constance, do you want to say hi, or are you still eating? I don't want to interrupt your lunch.
Hi, I am still eating it. Takes me so long to eat my lunch.
Healthy.
But I think some of the things that came up when Patrice was talking was, I was thinking of that saying, to thine own self be true.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the values workshop for me, because I've always been into values, virtue and values, and one of the main criteria for my sorting out to receive my husband was, I would say, good character and values. Good values and good character were the top, but it wasn't very specific, but there was definitely a line between something that was good, which I now would see more as compatible, and something that is not. But it's because I've done personal work for probably my whole life and have been on the search since kindergarten. And I think the workshop was unique in bringing out to the forefront of consciousness, what clarity on what are those values. And it's another card in the deck for me knowing myself. And the more I know myself, the easier it is to say yes or no. When I'm spinning, especially if I'm undecided, the other person starts making the decisions. And not necessarily out of a maliciousness, but if I don't know what I want to say yes or no to, then how are they going to know? So it just keeps coming down to the more I know myself. And then the more I do the values work, the more I know myself, the more it's like this never ending kind of eating.
That's why I like that spiral idea.
Yeah.
Like a seashell spiral.
Yeah. Teresa, I'm sorry your mama passed.
Thank you.
Sounds like you did your footwork around that bank account. That's brilliant.
Yeah. I actually predicted this adversary, so I was very careful almost the whole time. I mean, I have lapses in my confidence in my own ability to see another person's values. I know that this relative has been angry at me for a number of years, and for her interpretation of events for good reason. And so that's how I was able to predict that she wasn't going to get over it and would be like, I can really get you now. Because she's become power of attorney for my older sister. And that puts her in the cat seat in some ways. She thought she could require that I show her financial records all the way back to 1990. It's not required of me. And she had to have a talk with the attorney to have the attorney let her know that, no, it's only from the time of death to this moment. And so I think she had a hissy fit, but
and that's that kind of situation when Amy and Sheila kind of validated my values
Yeah.
and guided me to keep them at the forefront and do that, the post-it thing and stuff, that the more I'm mindful of my values and living them, the more relevant other people's are. Because it doesn't, as long as I maintain my values, it doesn't matter what they're doing over there.
Yeah.
They can't get me to give up my values.
Yeah. The lawyer, I mean, a value of mine is to be honest.
Mhm,
And the lawyer reiterated that to my niece.
mhm,
Your
mhm,
aunt is very honest.
mhm.
That was another moment where I was like, yay.
Yes, absolutely. Because it was shining through, right? It was very
Yeah, to
clear.
her, it has been
That's part of
shining
who you
through.
are. Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
Constance, what was the post-it thing? What was the
Oh.
Well, I took the workshop kind of in the beginning when it was getting offered. And I think we had where we put it on a post-it, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm,
So once we did the process of getting to our core values, then we put it on a post-it to keep it front of mind.
Gotcha.
mhm.
Yeah, it was at the
And I
end.
have to do that for everything. I mean, I have to do that for brushing my teeth practically. So I can put it like on the mirror, on the refrigerator, my forehead.
Yeah. And part of that is thank you, Constance, for reflecting that. It's a powerful thing to have, to see them. I
Mhm,
know I've heard from other participants that they had it right by the door, and their kids were like, yeah, my mom has it by the door, the post-its. And it's just that reminder, that reflection back. And it's also a way to use to make sure your values match who you are, because it's because sometimes we do pick up values from other people.
Mhm.
And if there's other people living in the house, like especially children, they'll hold you accountable.
Oh yeah, children are really good at that. Yeah.
Like, that's not honest. And my husband, one of my words is trustworthy, and he's saying, that's not trustworthy. You're not trustworthy around certain thing.
Yeah.
Chocolate cake. Yeah.
Yeah. So it is an important thing to have that reflected back, or put it, if it's not on a post-it note, on your phone, just so that it's something to really keep in the forefront of our minds, because it does tend to, like most things we work on. I've certainly taken workshops before and it's great, it's amazing, and then we forget. And how do we kind of keep it in our mind?
Yeah, because an interesting thing I don't know if you cover it, is what are our default values?
mhm.
Are they in sync?
Right.
Like my default values aren't necessarily in sync, because they usually operate from ideas and rules I created in kindergarten
Mhm,
that don't
Mhm.
serve me anymore.
mhm, mhm.
Right.
And so I think that's another reason why having it at the forefront, kind of like meditating on them in a way, to just like in different religions like Judaism and Muslim does 5 times a day, where it's like constantly saying the same prayer for a reason. Catholicism does that. And,
Right.
Yeah.
Repetition is important in keeping it.
Mm.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, because it's almost like setting that intention over and over again to be focused on those values that are so important. Constance, you said something that I just absolutely love, that we don't really talk about that much, and it's kind of embedded in the whole thing, but you really nailed it when you talked about how much values about knowing yourself. Like this is like so fundamental to this whole process, because it really is about knowing yourself. Because when you have that set of tools and many other things, it's not just values, but when you do know, it's like, oh my God, yeah. I mean, I've been on this journey for like many years. It's like, oh my God, have I done a lot of work? And there's still more work to do, right? It's always something.
Yeah.
But it's like that, the sense that I have in this moment, at this time in my life, the clarity that I have about who I am, and not from the ego, not the me that I want to present to the world, but who I fundamentally am, gives me so much of a sense of, it doesn't matter what the heck is going on. I'm going to be able to figure this out. I'm going to be able to navigate through this. I'm going to be resilient. I'm going to be able to get through it more than just like surviving, but thrive through it, right? Because I have that level of clarity about who I am. And the values are like another tool that really helps with that. And it's like so critical. So I just thank you for saying that, because it just was like light bulb. It's like, yeah, that's really part of what this is all about. Because then when you know who you are, you can make better decisions. You can go after the things that are really important to you. You can choose the relationships that match and energetically match who you are. I mean, everything you can be that light for the people that are looking to you for leadership and for your kids or whoever it is, your community, because you have that level of clarity, and it's just super important. It's like so valuable. So thank you for saying that, because it just really
Also, having this kind of community where there's, other people exist that are wanting to live by their values is kind of nice to know, because like in a situation like Terry's, like how easy it is for me to get like bumped off what I call the Serenity Mountain. It's like because, and then I'm like, if I feel like I'm in it alone and there's 10 people in front of me all having the same values but different, it's hard to not get sucked in sometimes or question oneself if it's not solid enough. So like to just, even if it happened briefly, it's like to come back and be like, it's like the breathing room, like, or the dugout, like, okay, this is where I can recover and get back in touch with people that want to live by value, and so many in today's society, there's so much that wants to put their values on us.
Right.
Culture and all this media is talking at us, not with us. I mean, luckily nowadays it's a little different, like something like this, we talk with each other, but so much is coming at us. It's at us, not with us.
It's really true. Yeah. And the values help us calibrate us back to ourselves. And not knowing.
Yeah.
It's well said.
I love it.
Yeah. Patrice, did you find your workbook? Or your values?
No, of course not. I couldn't. It was cracking me up though, because Constance, what you said about your default values, it's funny. I don't even know if you could even call them values, but the default ones are the ones that I try to like push away all the time. Like more for me, it's more opinionated and I don't think you'd say self-righteous necessarily, but I just gave my husband this card that I'm so excited to give him. It was for his birthday. It's like, it's just a cartoon one, but it's like, oh, can I please show you a better way to do that? I might not find it as funny as
you're asking. At least you're asking, not just blurting it out.
Pretty funny. So yeah, those default values are kind of tricky. The ones that maybe sometimes need to put in check.
Well, I think they're default behaviors that have an inherent value underneath them. And I think that's the alignment piece. The more we do the values work, the more they're going to stand out, because they're not going to be in alignment. So it's the default behaviors like, oh, that doesn't feel right anymore. The clearer we are, the more we know ourselves, we get more in alignment, then those things stand out as not being in alignment with our values.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I just thought about the whole inclusive, exclusive, and it'd be interesting to ask the question, are your values inclusive or are they exclusive? And I think that really makes a difference when you start thinking about it that way. Do they invite, are other people allowed to have theirs as well? Or are they like, oh, these are the ones, and the ones that you have or just don't measure up, or they're not as important, or they're not the right ones to have, and they were constantly fighting against that,
Right.
just in terms of how society functions. But it's like, I love being able to have a sense of inclusivity in it all.
Right. Which is why we define values the way we do in this work, because it can get co-opted in different forms, for sure.
Is it a short definition? Will you say the definition?
Oh, yes. I mean, the way I define it is, the way we have defined it here is it's a single word or short phrase that connects us to our truest self, our authentic self. It's a bridge between that innermost self and how we interact with the outside world. And it's that direct connect that way. And it's the inner compass to help us decide where we want to go and also how we get there.
Mhm, mhm,
So it's kind of those three pieces
mhm,
are what a value is,
mhm.
how we define it. Whereas it's not like we have to convince everybody else to do that too,
Mhm.
or else it's not really a value.
Right.
And it's not about being right or wrong. There's no shoulds or shouldn't. It's not about being perfect. It's a really important piece. It's nuanced, and it's really about you defining for yourself
Mhm.
what they are.
Right, right. Very well stated, Amy. And it's so personal, right? They're so personal, right? They're so uniquely ours. I always talk about the way that it feels as though we came into the world with a set of values, and it's about uncovering what they are for us. So
Yeah.
these are like the guiding principles for our life, right? And so for the work that we do and how we show up and how we contribute, somebody else may have something that's slightly different but that's the essence of what they need to express in this lifetime, right? So that we can have a lot of values beyond the ones that we name as our core, but the core ones are the drivers, and they're the compass. They point to true north for us, and that I think that's the significant part.
And
I'm
I
gonna turn my camera off to finish my lunch, but I'm
Yeah,
still,
yes,
I'm
thank
still
you.
here listening.
I wanted to say I just started a new program for teens, core values for teens, particularly
Yes.
juniors and seniors in high school. And I worked with a group this last month, and they were just so excited about engaging in this work and asking themselves these questions. They hadn't thought of it before, because that age group gets a lot at them constantly. And it was very powerful. I was surprised at how engaged they were and excited they were about it.
Mhm, mhm.
And both those who identified as he, using pronouns he and his, as well as the ones that she, hers, and theirs, they all just really found a way through this to themselves, which was great.
Mhm, mhm. Right, and that's work to continue. And
Yeah.
part of the impetus for that was the work that you did with your very own Hola,
Yeah. Vanilla. Yeah.
which
Your very
really
own.
helped her to get into a lot of schools, when she
Yeah.
did her essays, that there was the schools were very impressed with her command and understanding of who she was and how she was able to articulate that.
Great.
Right.
And part of that came from the values work. And so, helping other teens and helping young people to really get that clarity about who they are separate from all the noise is so valuable. I mean, I would have loved to have had something like this so many years ago.
Oh,
It
yeah.
took me a long journey to self, long journey to understanding who I was and getting clear about that and getting rid of all the other stuff. And so if you can get that early on in life, it's like, how powerful is that? Well, how does that set you up for success in the future and navigating through all the yeses and nos that you have to contend with, and they've got a lot more than we ever had.
Yeah, they really do. And that's a particular time in life when that's
Yeah,
really
yeah.
powerful. So
This group of teenagers that you have, is it a local group, or how are they?
they're in the college application process. So I work with groups, or we work one-on-one with individual students who want to know their values and then either apply it for their essay or applying to college or to prepare for an interview, to really know themselves well.
Mhm.
And they came out with such confidence and excitement and how to really present themselves in a different way. And with colleges also, with many schools that are getting rid of the SATs and these standardized testing, this is a way for students to really stand out.
Mhm.
So it's geared for this particular age group, though a lot of them are like, well, we need this more than just for college.
Mhm. Mhm.
But it's true. But for college, it's really a helpful tool. So I'm working with some schools to integrate it into their curriculum for college
Mhm.
too.
Right.
That's awesome. Because I'm just thinking, Carson, I have a junior in
Yeah.
high school, and he's trying to figure out a lot of that stuff. That would be super helpful.
Mhm.
So if you want, you can put together a group yourself with him if he has friends who want to do it together, or I could work one-on-one, or I have people collecting a wait list for people who want to do it. But junior year is perfect before they have to write their essay.
Mhm.
I just work with mostly seniors who are already in the process, but it still helped them. So it doesn't really matter, but ideally it's before, so it helps inform the whole process.
Mhm. Mhm.
Right. Yeah. No, I was thinking, you know how when you're with your friends and stuff, a lot of times at that age, just the group think or what have you. I was thinking a scenario like what we're doing right now would be
That's-
awesome.
That's exactly what we did. We had 8 students
Mhm.
and it was a mix
All
of
over.
things. And they kept wanting more. So it's about, we ended up doing 8 hours, but it was, typically it's about, I planned like 4 to 5 hours, maybe 6, depending on what they want and how
Mhm.
much coaching they want on their own.
Right.
Oh, nice. Awesome.
Yeah.
We
And
have
they
to talk
don't,
about that and figure that out, how to make that work for him.
right.
We can talk
mean,
about it.
Yeah. I was just gonna add that it also will help them choose the kind of course of study that matches who they are, so
Yeah,
that they're
because-
not like doing the things like, I started as a pre-med student, right? Because that's wanted to help, but that was not the right thing,
Right.
But just getting a more clarity about what resonates and what's the thing that you're here to do, and how to do something that matches who you are and the gifts that you have. And that's like super important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And it saves time and money for the parents and the kids from not applying to schools that don't match their values.
Yes,
Because
yes, all of that.
my daughter had like so many schools she was applying to, and I was like, yeah, she'd already decided. I think it's expensive quickly too.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, those applications.
Yeah, but she's loving it, and she just started UCLA this fall and is thriving and just loves the curriculum, the professors, the student body, everything's doing.
Yay.
I know, that's fabulous. That is
Yeah.
absolutely fabulous.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I
So
just got back from family weekend at Colorado State. Same thing. It's
it's
going
great.
really well.
That is fantastic. That is fantastic.
It feels good, right? When they're like,
It really does.
for the moment, yes.
Temporarily launched.
Yeah, definitely. And so you, Teresa, you go by Terry? Is that what I heard?
I do go by Terry. I have tried, I'm a little bit of a Luddite with computers still. And I've tried to change this name. And I can rename it temporarily to Terry, but then it always goes back to the other like that.
There you go.
There you go.
Well,
Yeah, I
it'll be
redo
the
my-
same next time. I'll have to do it again. I don't know how to do it permanently.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out and give you some some assistance with that. We are just about at
All right.
12:00. It's been an hour, just about. This
Great.
has
That was
been,
great.
as always, an amazing conversation. I just always look forward to it and learn so much. And I love the reflections that I get in the way that people articulate their own situations and their own thought processes, because it always enriches my understanding and deepens the work. And so it's just been another great day, and I'm so glad to be here and to be of service and to learn and to grow along with you. So thank you for showing up today.
Oh,
Thank
thank
you for showing up today.
Yes,
Thank you
yes,
both.
yes.
And thank you, Patrice and Constance. This has
Thank
been a great
you.
hour.
I just realized my mic is off, so I hope you couldn't hear me either.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, we weren't listening.
Have a good week. I mean, month.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes, Jeffrey.
Yes,
Thanks so
yes,
much.
yes. And we will see you, hopefully we'll see you next month, and hopefully we'll see you for the workshop if you decide. to
November
stop. And If
2nd.
you know of anybody who would benefit from, just please pass the information on, because we would love to have them be a part of it. It's such powerful work. And so, yeah, please let others know.
Okay, great. And it's 2 weekends, the.
Yeah, yes.
Seventh.
November 7th and 14th.
Okay, all right.
Yes,
Thank
December.
you.
Thank you so much. It's been great.
Thank you. Bye, Patrice.
Bye, ladies.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, did you turn on, you're used to recording?
Yeah, I can turn it off.
Okay.